remember and Murray take a deep breath before seeing how she lives now. There are some voices that become part of your life without you even realizing it. You hear them on the radio, in your parents' homes, in quiet moments, and years later, a single song can bring an entire era rushing back. And Murray had that kind of voice. Warm, gentle, unforgettable. But behind that calm voice was a woman whose journey was far more complicated than the polished image audiences saw. And Murray was born on June 20th, 1945, in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, Canada. She grew up in a small community, surrounded by family, music, and the kind of modest beginnings that rarely hint at future fame. Her father was a doctor, and her mother was a nurse, and discovered something different in herself. She loved music. She loved singing. And eventually, that passion became impossible to ignore. What makes Anne's story so touching is that she never seemed desperate for attention. She did not build her career around controversy.
She simply sang.
Yet those songs carried enormous emotion. Her voice could sound comforting one moment and heartbreaking the next. That emotional honesty became her greatest strength. Her breakthrough did not happen overnight, and worked for years before becoming an international star. She appeared on Canadian television and gradually built an audience. Then came Snowbird, the song that changed everything. Released in 1970, it became a massive hit and helped introduce Anne Murray to listeners far beyond Canada. Suddenly, the woman from Nova Scotia was an international celebrity. But fame has a strange price. When millions of people love your voice, they can begin to feel as though they know you personally. They know your songs. They recognize your smile. They remember the moments your music helped them through. But they do not necessarily know the person behind the microphone. And continued building an extraordinary career, crossing country, pop, and adult contemporary music with remarkable ease. She earned major awards and became one of Canada's most recognizable musical figures. Songs like You Needed Me connected with listeners because they were not complicated. They were emotional. They sounded like real life. And perhaps that is why Anne remained so beloved. She never needed to be the loudest person in the room. Over the years, however, the demands of fame became increasingly difficult to balance with family and personal life, and eventually stepped away from the relentless pace of performing. In 1998, she announced her retirement from performing, choosing to spend more time with her family and live life away from the constant pressure of the entertainment industry. That decision says something important about her. For many celebrities, retirement can feel like disappearing. For Anne Murray, it seemed more like choosing what mattered most. Today, Anne is far removed from the non-stop schedule that once defined her life. She has continued to enjoy a quieter existence, spending time with family and looking back on a career that lasted for decades. She has also remained connected to the legacy of her music, even though she no longer lives under the same spotlight. And this is where Anne's story becomes more emotional. Because seeing an older artist living quietly can make us realize something we often forget. Celebrities age too. The voices we grew up hearing become memories. The faces we remember from television change. And eventually, the stars who once seemed larger than life simply want the same things everyone else wants: peace, family, and meaningful time. And Murray's life was never really about chasing fame. It was about connection. She connected with people through songs about love, heartbreak, gratitude, loneliness, and hope. Decades later, those emotions still work because human feelings do not become outdated. Perhaps that is the real reason Anne Murray's story continues to matter. She did not need a dramatic ending to prove that her life was extraordinary. She already gave generations something that cannot easily be measured: memories. So when you see Anne Murray today, don't only see an older woman who stepped away from the spotlight. Remember the young girl from Nova Scotia who dreamed of singing. Remember the voice that crossed borders. Remember the songs that became part of people's lives. Because time may change the person we see on screen, but it cannot erase the voice that once made millions of people stop, listen, and feel something. And maybe that is the most beautiful ending of all.